Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jesse Chase Lubitz of DevEx and our esteemed panel.
Hi everyone, I'm Jesse Chase Lubitz. I'm a global development reporter at DevEx, and I'm joined here today with two wonderful panelists. We have Thomas Law, the founder of IbroWork Open Innovation Hub, and we have Renata Piazzon, the executive director of Arapiao Institute. I was working on my pronunciation. So we're about a month and a half from COP30 in Belém, and in the lead up, all eyes have really been on Latin America. So today we're going to have a conversation, hopefully an intimate conversation, about how indigenous knowledge, innovation from the private sector, and nature-based approaches are converging, and how they've been doing that maybe for the last year and a half as eyes have been on Latin America. So let's start with Thomas.
Okay, Jesse.
Latin America is rich in innovation, but what we often see is many climate technologies stalling at the pilot stage. What's blocking them from moving forward?
I think in Brazil, for example, we have a big challenge. Of course, our institution is focused in collaboration, connection, and education. But in Brazil, we have 26 states plus the federal district in Brasilia, and we have many social inequalities. So when we talk about education, we also need human capital. And for example, in COP30, this year, we did a big event in Amazon, Manaus. We had a big event with many entrepreneurs, but also many indigenous people doing sustainable coffee. With this sustainable coffee in Amazon, they are also producing, with this coffee, cakes, candies, cookies. So there's a big issue in Amazon that is, for one side, you need to protect the Amazon. You need to protect the forests. But on the other side, they want to have a green economy stronger. We have the BR 319, that it's a road that they want to do the construction to Manaus. But even today, they don't have this ready yet. So it's a big challenge for Amazon, different from other states of Brazil. If you have São Paulo and the state of São Paulo, we have many infrastructure. And in this case, COP30 will be a big challenge to see what are the pathways to have a green economy in Brazil.
Great. So Renata, when combining some of the indigenous knowledge, which is obviously a huge part of Brazilian culture and Latin American culture, with policy and with innovation, what barriers are you facing from political, financial, or cultural? What barriers are there, and how do you navigate that?
Thank you so much for the question and for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. I'm the CEO of Arapiao. Arapiao is a Brazilian philanthropy focused on climate. And I think one of our most interesting projects is not related to climate. And it's related to providing connectivity access to indigenous communities, Black communities, and riverine communities from the Amazon region. And I start by saying that because I think it's really important for philanthropy to be flexible, because when we're open to deep listening to those communities and what they actually need to protect the territory, their ask was connectivity, because then I can have access to health, I can have access to education, I can assure that the youth want to stay in the territory, and then we have the territory protected. So that's a big initiative called Forest People Connection, which has the focus to reach 9,000 communities, 1 million people in the Amazon region. And I just want to emphasize what you said, because when we look into the Amazon, and COP30 will be in the Amazon in 50 days, and we are actually counting the days, it's not only about forests. When we started funding climate in the Amazon, we thought, everyone cares about forests in the Amazon, and it's actually like 70 to 80% of the people, they live in urban areas. So what they want is quality of life. And there are many, many Amazons and different Amazons. There are the cities, there are the protected areas, the areas that were deforested, and then the arch also of deforestation. So there are different solutions and technology solutions involving indigenous communities and local communities living in the Amazon region. There's no one silver bullet. I used to say, like, for complex problems, there's usually a very simple, easy, and wrong solution. So I think it's very important for us to embrace the complexity of the Amazon when we're talking about indigenous leadership and technology and bioeconomy solutions.
It's really interesting. I think kind of combining that with what you're working on, I think over the last 6 or 7 months especially, as USAID cuts have hit a lot of different government-funded programs, there's been a lot of emphasis on, you know, what can philanthropy do, what can private sector do? Are you seeing or finding it easier almost to work with other smaller organizations around you and move forward what you were trying to do kind of this whole time, because, you know, maybe there's a little bit more of an environment for that now?
Jesse, in my opinion, COP30 will strengthen the Paris Agreement. And in Brazil, nowadays, in our institution, we did also a training for the NGOs. So we have more than 100 NGOs in São Paulo, but they have like many other NGOs in Brazil. So this is what I think, that if you have what we do, we are a think tank, so we want to bring also new insights. And we are also working with the local government in Brazil, local level. For example, the City Council of Brazil, of São Paulo. We are organizing and helping them to aid a course. They want to create a university inside the municipal police force. And they will also have courses of waste management, artificial intelligence, and also climate changes. And in São Paulo, we also have a secretary of climate changes, and our partnership with them, Renata, is to do one thing: plant more trees. So it's very interesting that many sectors that we have in Brazil, not only the government sector, but the private sector, are also helping to create new possibilities in climate changes.
I think that's very interesting what you said about the Paris Agreement, because the Paris Agreement is not a climate agreement, it's an economic transition agreement. And I was hearing Cristiana Figueres in the podcast, The Outrage Optimism, yesterday, and she said, you know, when we signed the Paris Agreement, we thought it was for climate, and it actually is for economic transition, which is much more complex than climate. So I think it's very, very important to look into the lens of development when we look into places like the Amazon region and places like with such a vast tropical forest.
And just to complete also what Renata is talking about, today we had the opening of the UN, and we had President Lula doing the speech before President Trump. And of course, Brazil needs a better relationship with the US, because when we get the Paris Agreement, we know that developed countries can also help the developing countries to improve their environmental protection. So in this case, President Lula also launched, and he will be launching in COP30, the TFFF, that is the Tropical Forest Forever Facility. That is also a financial mechanism for countries that want to preserve the tropical forests. So it will be one more mechanism that Brazil will have in COP30.
Yeah, I mean, the TFFF has come up quite a lot. Brazil's really excited about it. And it's interesting to hear you bring this up, because obviously it requires, and they're looking for seed funding from governments around the world. But then it's meant to be a private investment fund. Are you hearing a lot of excitement within Brazil or within the companies that you work with to participate in this and to see this come to fruition?
I think Brazil is prepared. Renata can also help me with that. Brazil already have this ecological transitional plan from the Brazilian federal government that is a tangible result. We also have a market, a regulated market of carbon, credit carbon. And we also, nowadays, Renata can talk better, we have this forest governance and data. So we are also monitoring our ecosystem in Manaus, in Amazon. And with this new mechanism, I think it will give more incentives to the indigenous people and also to the Amazonian area, because I'm not talking about only Belém do Pará. We are talking about many other states that relates to Amazonia.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to add to that?
No, maybe just add with the head of philanthropy, like the importance of funding, mapping with technology of data to protect the territory. I think one of the most successful cases of incubation that we have in Arapiaú, our foundation, is the incubation of map biomas, which is today in Brazil the main tool for detection of deforestation large scale in Brazil, and it's now in 17 countries. And the connection of map biomas, not only with indigenous communities for the protection of the territory, but also with the private and the financial sector, was very, very successful. So now the private sector and banks are using map biomas to assure that they don't have any illegal deforestation in the areas that they are providing credit. So I think that's an interesting example on where philanthropy can act, and then also in partnership with private and government, sustain public policies on the long term.
You're working with a lot of kind of community level impact, communities and community level impacts. I'm wondering how you go about quantifying your impact. How do you measure kind of what you've done over a year or 2 years?
It's such an interesting discussion. I think every philanthropy has its theory of change. And I think that makes everything really hard when we're talking about collective impact. And I think aligning investments are really key because of the complex challenge that we have by 2030. So we are more and more measuring scale by many smalls and not necessarily moving a big needle. So what scale? Scale is like influencing many smalls. And in our case, we are focused on bioeconomy, for example. So we are funding many different solutions on forest economy with smallholders in the Amazon region and in the Atlantic forest. And we are now moving to 2,500 communities, smallholder farmers involved in cocoa, coffee plantation, acai, lots and lots of products that Brazil can export to the world. And of course, to reach scale, we need to reach at least 70,000 smallholders, which is the total of when we're looking to cocoa. But the role of philanthropy is to prove the concept and then connect with public policy to unlock this scale. So I think we're being quite successful in measuring that, and then in measuring, of course, the income, of wealth of those communities, the indicators like education in the communities that we support also is one of the indicators that we measure. But I think most of all, how we can measure the quality of life, the increase of the quality of life, because in the end, that's what everyone wants, right? To have a better life.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can kind of respond to that. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, catalytic funding, catalytic financing for the private sector and cross-sector innovations to go in there and fill out whatever they can and really move the needle even further. Are you finding that to be happening more and more in Brazil? Are you looking to philanthropies to say, okay, where are they starting? Where can we go in? Or are you seeing that across the different partners you work with?
Jesse, we have some partners in Brazil, and for example, they have companies and they want to participate by doing cultural events or sports events. And they have, in Brazil, we have a law called Lei Rouanet. It's when a company can, part of its taxes can be part of this plan for cultural events. And we've done a lot of them in Brazil, since these companies also, they want to promote the ESG. And it's helping a lot of people, such as kids that want to do shows, that are participating in concerts. So it has a social impact regarding the cultural and also sports events.
Okay. Kind of going back, we spoke about this already a little bit, but going back to the Brazilian COP presidency, there's been a lot of talk about having this COP in Belém. And the idea was to bring the world to the Amazon, right? To show the world the Amazon, to have them interact more with communities that live there. But there's also some criticism around, we have 80,000 people coming, how's there going to be enough room for everyone? A lot of people are putting their apartments up on Airbnb and leaving. Are you concerned, that it's going to be sort of a replacement type situation, and that a lot of the people who normally live there and the communities that we can learn from won't actually be there when we get there?
I'm actually not. I think it's going to be the first COP after a 3-year period of COP in where we didn't see many movements on the streets. And in Brazil, that will be so powerful. Like indigenous leaderships and communities and civil society are preparing for a very long time to be there. So we'll have a lot of manifestations. And I encourage everyone to go to Belém. There will be space. It will be, of course, the best, one of the funniest COPs because of Brazilians and the way that we are. But I'm really optimistic of what we can deliver. And I think it's a very important momentum for Brazil to showcase that Brazil can lead this economic transition. Brazil can be a hub of climate solutions to the world. We can provide solutions in restoration, regenerative agriculture, sustainable mining, carbon, circular economy. We actually launched this week a report on solutions on climate and nature that Brazil is already delivering, and they are mature solutions. So I think that's a very important moment for us to position Brazil as a global leader. And I think all the news about logistics, I think it's just something that we'll figure out and will be solved.
Yeah, in my opinion, Jesse, I think COP30, it is what I've mentioned before. It's to strengthen the Paris Agreement. And of course, we will have many other events that will happen in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, preparing to COP30. But if we see what is happening in COP30, and with the government, Brazilian government, sending also delegations, if we align capital, money, public policies, Sam, that we talked about public policies, and also about leadership community, that what Renata is talking about, I think COP30 could be a blueprint to scale up, because we had the COP29 last year in Azerbaijan, and the discussion was to continue in finding a way to finance. And now in Brazil with COP30, with the TFFF, and also I think there are many other partners coming to Brazil, many other countries coming to Brazil. It will be a good environment for this future generation scale up.
Are you feeling that already? I mean, there must be a sense of excitement in the innovation world in Brazil.
I feel through the universities. I'm a professor at University of São Paulo, so they invited me to participate in COP30 as an academic. But I also feel through the startups hub. So I'm feeling that the Brazilian ecosystem of innovation, they are also very, very interested in participating in COP30. And here, this environment, also the international environment.
Do you think, and this will be probably our last question, but do you think that, Brazil's a really special place. This COP is happening in Brazil right now. What's the potential for replicating some of the stuff that you've talked about today, some of these climate solutions in other countries?
I think it's huge. I think Brazil on regenerative agriculture, for example, we have the best examples on technology. We have been supporting new technologies on that for the last 30 years. In sustainable fuels, in using ethanol as sustainable fuels. In energy transition, more than 80% of our grid is sustainable and renewable. So I think all of that, and combined with restoration, Brazil, one of the main areas in the world for restoration at scale, and we have many examples of companies doing that at scale already. Biomas, Regreen, Mombach, Belterra, you name it. So there are many, many companies already mature promoting those solutions. So I'm seeing this big pre-competitive movement increasing in Brazil around those solutions that could influence globally.
Great. Well, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Great way to end it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.